We won back-to-back World Cup championships, and in a moment when everyone, you would have thought they would be chanting USA, in the stadiums across the country, they were chanting equal pay. And it just showed what our fight represented to so many people.
Equal Pay Pioneers is presented by Cadillac.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Holly Rowe with ESPN, and we are so excited to be joined by one of the best footballers in the world today, two-time World Cup champion Christen Press, top 10 all-time goal scorer for the U.S. women's national team, all the things, still to this day, the leading goal scorer in Stanford soccer history. So thank you for joining us. This is awesome.
Thanks for having me. What a joy.
This is fun. Okay, so I have been watching from afar at this year's Women's World Cup coverage, and you have reimagined yourself. You know, you're still playing for Angel City FC, but you've got your own show happening right now, The Recap. Tell me a little bit about what it's like to be on this side of it, like interviewing and talking about sports from an analytical standpoint.
Yeah, the recap show has been so much fun. We decided to start a media division at our company, Inc., with the purpose of reimagining the way that women are seen and experienced in sport. And I'm very proud to be a part of a generation of active players that are really getting into the business of women's sports in their endeavors and in our endeavors off the field. And so for me, that is mostly in my company, Inc. And through this show, we were able to bring something that I think we all really want in sports media, which is authenticity and a little bit of a removal between the filter between like athletes and analysts and the people that are watching, the audience. So it was really fun. We got to just be honest. We got to talk about sport at the intersection of progress and equity. I think that's what's so amazing about women's sports is there's this natural conversation about progress and equity and opportunity that's inherent with us playing, with people seeing women celebrated and paid and successful in the way that we do in sports. It's a natural conversation that we can bring. And it's really important for us for this World Cup that we took this opportunity to shine a spotlight on women's sports, but we'll never take it off. And we want to continue to amplify and share the stories that are sometimes getting lost in mainstream media.
I really love this because I have spent my entire career trying to lift women's sports and be like that person out there like, hey, what about us? So it feels really good. Like, okay, finally we have some help and it's coming from the athletes. So I want to start first with, you use the word equity and business and getting more into the business of women's sports. Take me back to this really kind of groundbreaking lawsuit by the U.S. women's national team, where you guys come together, and even though it might be unpopular and it might be challenging and hard, you decide to fight for equal pay. How did that come about, and why did you stick together so brilliantly to make sure that it happened?
I love our equal pay story. And for myself, when I got my first call up to the U.S. Women's National Team, I didn't even know that you got paid to represent your country. So that's just like the level of information and understanding that I had, because it is the dream. And you do it because you love it. You're right. And you're right. I would have played my whole career without getting paid. But what I was educated in is the value of financial liberation of women and the importance that we fought for our value, our fair value, so that we could set precedent for women everywhere in all different workforces to do the same. And so our team was really united by that idea, that we were playing for something more. And again, we were told the market realities are such that you shouldn't be paid your value. Well, men are stronger and faster and the quality is better. So we're not going to pay you your value. And again, there was this brainwashing of like, you're not worth it. And I think the beauty of the U.S. Women's National Team is we kept together and we kept winning and we kept saying, yes, we are. Yes, we are worth it. And if you ask any player that was a part of that journey, we were all so focused on the idea that we won the opportunity to fight for equal pay. Not that we should have had to win, because we should be paid fairly anyway, but we knew that the winning would give us the platform to create meaningful change. And so we actually were able to focus so much on the playing because we thought that was the best path to winning equity. And that's exactly what happened. Like we won back-to-back World Cup championships, and in a moment when everyone, you would have thought they would be chanting USA, in the stadiums across the country, they were chanting equal pay. And it just showed what our fight represented to so many people who are also on journeys for fairness, equity, equality, progress, opportunity, all of the things. And it's really a shared fight across countries in women's soccer and for women across industries to continue to see our value, to know our value, to believe in ourselves and believe in each other and create this rising tide.
Yeah, I think it resonated a lot with me in particular because so I've worked in a male dominated industry my whole life. I don't know that a lot of us have dared to speak up for our value and our equity because some of us were just so excited to even be in this arena and be in this male dominated world. And I loved that it really was apples to apples. You could compare the women's US national team and the men's US national team. So it was this really easy comparison of no, it doesn't have anything to do with the marketplace. It has to do with we do the exact same work. And I think you got women across the world like, yes, I'm doing the exact same work too. How have women responded to this? Because I think you guys all spoke up and had courage for us when we maybe haven't dared to have it for ourselves.
Yeah, what you said resonates so much because for my entire professional career, there was this voice, maybe the patriarchy, saying, you know, you should be grateful. There wasn't a pro league years ago. Well, the last women, they didn't get paid what you're getting paid. You should be grateful. And there was also a pressure. There was this feeling because our league had folded twice before. If you make too much noise, you know, the league might not survive. Your voice could ruin everything. So there was this silencing that happened. And so when you say like women haven't dared to speak, I think it's important to note because the structures are there to silence. And that's really what the fight is. It's against the status quo structures that are preventing people from reaching their potential. And I think that it has really resonated with people. I always say like the best example in my head of like how we've created changes. Like I hope that, you know, along the way, when someone was in the stands chanting equal pay, when we were fighting for this lawsuit, that maybe they were inspired to go ask for a raise. Like that simple idea of like one person being like, you know what, I can do this too. And that inspiration for me is like a torch. And it was a torch that I was handed from the previous players on the US women's national team. I would carry it as far and as high as I possibly could. And I'm still carrying it on behalf of women everywhere. But the torch isn't a linear path. We also want to create little sparks everywhere so that women in all industries and all walks of life have this inspiration to go and see their value and fight for it.
Oh my gosh, you just gave me this great visual. It's like, I just want us to all make little torch pins or logos that like the underground women who are like, oh, we're fighting. We're all just gonna have these little torches on. Like, I recognize you, you're a torch bearer. Okay, so this is super random, but I just happened to be in the WNBA bubble for 3 months with Megan Rapinoe. And so like, honestly, we kept each other sane because like, you know, we were there, we were isolated. And the entire time she was in the WNBA bubble supporting her girlfriend, Sue Bird, she was working on this. And I would see her on these conference calls. She was out at the pool on these Zooms every day. I don't think I understood how stressful this was for all of you. You know, when the documentary LFG came out, I was like, oh, this was a heavy, this wasn't just you're a torchbearer. This is like you guys have the weight of the women's world on your shoulders. How did you stand up to the pressure and the anxiety and the stress?
Yeah, it was a lot of work. And I think the work started with re-upping our players association. We had a players association, but it wasn't super active. And it's probably the contribution I'm most proud of was being a part of a group of players that said, hey, information is power. We need to understand where we are, why we're here, and make sure that we know everything that we possibly can to fight this strategically. And so it was a second job. Like we were in training and then in the meal rooms, huddling up as a leadership group, looking at numbers, looking at investment, looking at financial statements, hiring people for our players association, trying to find ways to monetize our own value so we weren't entirely dependent on US Soccer's revenue stream. All of these things, which were countless hours, calls, Zooms, in-person time before and after training. And I think for some players, it was truly exhausting. And I think it's really important to note that it's unfair for us to have to do that, to have to do that second job. And the goal is for the next generation of players to not have to. For the next generation, for the Sophia Smiths and the Alyssa Thompsons to be able to just play and just be paid and just be able to financially support themselves in what is a very short career, and not have to worry about getting a second job or running clinics or being a coach after. Being the best in the world at what you do should be enough to have financial support and liberation for your life. And yet it was the work that I'm most proud of, and it was the most rewarding for me. I've always just been a person where I'm like searching for purpose. And I think with sport, you get the joy of like that like flow state and transcendence and like that spirituality that comes with it. And I was always seeking like this like intellectual stimulation, that this was really rewarding for me. And it made sport have so much purpose that I was able to help the group get together and help lead that very important journey toward equal pay.
You talked about you really getting to the business side of things. And I think that right now, Angel City FC is reimagining the marketplace for women. And why I say that is, you were saying at the beginning of this fight, everyone's told us the money's not there. Women don't, the marketplace can't bear this. What we're finding is the marketplace has never really been tapped for women. And the system, like this is systemic in that they have not bid the rights to the highest bidder. They have not showed the true value of the ratings of women. They have not gone to brands and have brand engagement. How are you now as a player at Angel FC and a business person kind of reimagining things, realizing there is a marketplace for women? Women spend money. If we only tap into what women can do, how is the marketplace bigger and better than they've led us to believe all these years?
Yeah, it's so true. I think that in this country, independent entities that are owned and run by women are extremely important. I think for a long time, we've seen the men's sports house that's existed for so long. And then they just say like, oh, here's a side room, here's a pool house, and you can put some women's sports there. We'll like add it on. And what I think Angel City has done is built a women's sports house and seen the specific opportunity that is there for women's sports that aren't exactly copy paste from men. It's a different market. It's a different opportunity. So to have things designed by and for women is super powerful. And I think it's really essential because what we kept hearing in the fight is this like catch-22 argument of, the market realities are showing that there's, not the same potential, yada, yada. But we kept saying, what about the investment? Invest the same and then compare. And finally, we have a model with Angel City where the investment's there. The mission of the business isn't like, oh, I did this for charity. I did this for my daughter. I did this because it's a great business move. And we're going to make money and we're going to create impact with that money, but we're also running a very successful business. And I think if that is able to be replicated all over the country, the world, it's a really, really powerful signal.
Yeah, I really love that. Okay, before I let you go, one more question. You are now a member of the media per se. You've got this show, and you guys, I've had this conversation with Candace Parker, Diana Taurasi, because everyone else is always criticizing women. We in the media that cover women's sports have tended to be a little more protective, and we don't criticize because we're just like trying to get coverage and trying to help the women succeed. People were critical of this year's U.S. women's national team. I'm wondering what the feedback has been and why is it important to cast a critical eye, and not just to be critical, but to try to fix things and make sure that there is success moving forward, particularly with the team that you have poured your whole career and life and soul into?
Yeah, this was actually a question we got asked a lot. Like, how are you able to speak? Are you afraid, to be honest? And we were not at all, because I think that there's two different types of criticism that we saw. And one of them was analytical. And I think that Tobin and I had a particular lens because we approached it as if we were like members of the team watching the game. We would be critical of ourselves and our teammates. We would ask questions. And it wasn't even a criticism as much as it was an exploration that I think is essential to sports. And then there was another level of criticism that I think was really unfair of the team, that was around like issues and attachments and politics that just gets dumped on a team in a sensationalized moment that we wanted nothing to no part of. Like, so I think the lens that we had was, it's a sign of respect that we can be honest. And we never thought of ourselves as critical as much as we thought of ourselves as being authentic, and knowing how hard it is to win a World Cup match allows you to have a little bit of balance when you're talking about the fact that the team didn't win a World Cup match. We would never take it for granted because we knew that each game that we won when we played in a World Cup, the margin was this small. And so we know how important it is to get the small things right. And we knew how hard it was to achieve a three-peat, which was what the team's goal was. And so we came at it from respect and camaraderie, and there is criticism inherently in that.
Okay, last thing, what's next for you? Give us something that we should be looking forward to for you and your goals.
Well, a couple of things. The comeback is on. I am doing everything in my power to get back on the field as soon as possible. So looking forward to my return on the pitch. And our recap show, we are working toward a global women's soccer show. So this was the World Cup edition, but we're hoping that we can expand it to do a weekly sort of show where we're covering women's sports and able to keep that authentic conversation and the celebration of gal culture alive.
I love it. I think I fell in love with a lot of players on other, once the US was knocked out kind of early, I started falling in love with players on other teams. Like, oh my gosh, I had no idea about this player or this player. So we need more of that. I do think we need more of a spotlight globally. And thank you so much. It's so nice to chat with you, get to know you a little bit more. And thank you for being a pioneer for all of us women for equal pay. You guys had courage and bravery where some of us have not, and we thank you.
Well, thank you for doing the hard work of being a woman in media and fighting the good fight alongside us. Appreciate it.
All right, let's get our torchbearer pins going. Can you work on that? Let's go.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
can.
a secret society torchbearers. Let's go.
Love it.
This episode of Equal Pay Pioneers is presented by Cadillac. Be iconic.